Welcome back to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. And now let's start with the first story. It's called Have to Drive It. A few years ago, I was a truck driver for a company that had different trucks for different jobs. Depending on the delivery, I might drive up to 3 different trucks in one day. Unfortunately, the company wasn't great at maintaining their vehicles. Over the years, I got a few fines for things like missing inspections. While the company paid the fines, it was still frustrating. Eventually, their largest truck started to fall apart. It was barely running and needed thousands of dollars in repairs. I told the company I refused to drive it, because it was unsafe and an accident waiting to happen. For about a week they worked around it, but then they told me I had to drive it for just one delivery. Reluctantly I agreed, wanting to be a team player and serve my customer. The drive was a nightmare. The truck left a massive trail of smoke as I went down the highway. Cars behind me had to use their high beams, because the smoke was so thick. As the sun rose, people started honking and signaling their frustration. The engine burned through so much oil that the company had loaded an entire case of motor oil in the cab for me to refill during the trip. By the end of the 50-mile round trip, the truck had lost 24 quarts of oil and almost an entire tank of fuel. After that, I put my foot down and said I wouldn't drive it again until it was repaired. As a truck driver, I had to do pre-trip inspection every day, documenting any defects in a logbook. 1 copy stayed with the truck, 1 went to the company, and the 3rd was available for the Department of Transportation if requested. I filled this out meticulously every time I drove the truck, and even kept a separate list of additional concerns for my own reference. The next day I arrived to find the truck fully loaded again. When I said I wasn't driving it, they insisted I had to. After a quick thought, I said okay. I pulled out of the lot but headed towards the fuel station first, since the truck was nearly empty. On the way I noticed a DOT mobile inspection station set up just before the gas station. They watched me drive by, clearly interested in my truck. After refueling, I headed back toward the inspection station, and sure enough, they flagged me down. I pulled in, shut off the truck, and handed the inspector my logbook and notes. The inspector was shocked. He spent about 30 minutes reviewing everything, before coming back and asking why I was driving such an unsafe vehicle. I explained that I had no choice. After another 20 minutes, he returned, slapped a big red out of service tag on the windshield, and told me the truck had 21 safety violations. He also fined the company for allowing me to drive it. Thankfully, he called the local police to handle one minor issue, a fuel tax sticker, and turned a potential $10,000 fine into a $90 ticket that the company later paid. The company had to pay over $65,000 in fines and towing fees. The following week, they leased a new fleet of trucks with a maintenance plan and backup vehicles for repairs. I stayed for another 2 years before leaving for a competitor, who offered better pay and better maintained vehicles. The next story is called the Bluff. When I was in high school, I wasn't very good at writing essays in English. I understood the concepts, but trying to expand on an idea and write a few pages in just 45 minutes wasn't something I could manage easily. One term, we had a student teacher completing her practicum. She knew how tough it could be managing high school students, so she didn't take any nonsense. Unfortunately, this made her a bit overbearing, which caused a lot of my classmates to either tune out or actively antagonize her. This in turn made her more defensive, and it felt like a cyclone of tension. For me, the moment I checked out was during a discussion about a poem. The author used the term real chair instead of real chair. I raised my hand and gave my interpretation of why the author might have chosen that phrasing. I was always taught there were no wrong answers in literary discussions, so I felt confident sharing my thoughts. But instead of encouraging me, She shot back with a blunt, "No, you are wrong. Point taken." A few weeks later, we had to write an essay on how the author made us feel while reading a specific text. At this point, I had mentally checked out of her class. I wasn't great at essay writing to begin with, and I wasn't invested enough to try. So I wrote a couple of short paragraphs, summarizing the text's message, and admitted that I didn't feel anything while reading it. The following Monday, we got our essays back. I scored 5 out of 25. More than I expected, honestly. So those 2 paragraphs must have been decent. The student teacher took me aside to talk. She expressed disappointment, saying I could have done better, and pointed out that other students had written 2 or 3 pages, while I barely wrote half a page. To me, it felt insincere. This was the same teacher, who had no problem bluntly telling me and others when we were wrong. She asked why I didn't try harder, and I told her honestly, I didn't have an emotional reaction to the text, so why pretend? She then gave me a choice: take the failing grade or rewrite the essay during the next class. I replied, "Okay, I'll take the grade. No point wasting time." Her expression changed, and she hesitated before asking, "Really? Are you sure?" "Yep," I said. "I'm no good at this kind of thing. If I didn't get it right the first time, I don't see how it would magically change overnight." Defeated, she sent me back to class, but left for a few minutes. Later, I was called out again, this time by my regular teacher. She was kind and patient, asking why I didn't think I could do better, and what about the question confused me. After a long conversation, she told me I had to rewrite the essay, but this time with a new text and question, one that wouldn't let me just say I didn't. In the end, I wrote about 2 pages and barely passed. But the experience seemed to have an impact on the student teacher. Over the next 2 weeks, I noticed a few changes. She stopped reacting harshly when students gave unexpected answers, and didn't try to win against teens who were clearly just being difficult. The third story is called No Personal Cell Phone. I'm currently staying in Japan, and I don't speak Japanese. One day I went down to the front desk at my hotel, and as I often did on this trip, pulled out my phone to use Google Translate. I wanted to ask, "What time does breakfast start?" The clerk glanced at my phone and reached for his own phone, which was charging on a nearby table. But halfway through the motion, he stopped, hesitated, and exchanged a quick glance with another clerk. Then, instead of grabbing his phone, he sat back down at the desk, typed something on the computer, and headed to the printer. A moment later, he handed me a printout from Google Translate's webpage that read, "It starts at 6 AM. Now, that is the kind of employee who's clearly been told not to use personal devices during work hours. The next story is called Look Elsewhere. I'm a civil engineer specializing in structural engineering. I completed an engineering degree and a specialization year in complex studies and design at a renowned school in my country. I ranked 2nd and 3rd in my classes, so I'm highly specialized in my field. After my studies, I secured the job I wanted before even graduating. I joined a team of 6 engineers, focusing on existing structures, like inspecting bridges or dams for safety after damage. In my first year, I integrated well, and by my 2nd year, I was the person everyone came to for answers. My work earned me raises, bonuses, and recognition. By the 3rd year, I became the go-to person for complex projects and solutions. I proposed transitioning into a technical referent role, where I'd still contribute to projects, but also oversee team standards and handle specialized issues. My manager supported the idea in writing and agreed to fund training for me. However, this is where things started going wrong. By the 4th year, I was handling everything, training newcomers, answering technical questions, even for my manager, and solving high-level problems. Despite my efforts, the training and career development I was promised never materialized. A meeting with HR was unproductive, as they didn't even know who I was despite my contributions. My manager reassured me during my review that they'd address my concerns, but nothing changed. In the 5th year, things worsened. 3 team members left, and I was still doing the work of multiple roles. I had to fight just to get a proper computer for calculations, which was critical for my job. Frustrated, I requested a meeting with upper management to push for my development. The meeting didn't go well. One manager openly admitted that they hadn't reviewed my file. They dismissed my concerns, criticized me for requesting career progression, and suggested I look elsewhere if I wasn't happy. So I did just that. I accepted a new role with better pay, fewer hours, more benefits, including a company car, and the title of National Referent. Before leaving, I warned my company that they risked losing more talent if they didn't value their employees. Within months, 2 more colleagues resigned, and others told me they were planning to leave. The team was left severely understaffed, with the most experienced person having just 10 months of experience. The company lost major contracts I had secured, and sales dropped significantly. Clients reached out to me, expressing concerns about the firm's ability to handle projects without me. The team morale collapsed, and even my former manager admitted they could no longer handle complex projects. Looking back, I'm glad I made the move. The last story is called One-Page Assignment. For a previous assignment, I had to research a topic, so I ended up creating an 11-page document. I'll admit it included a lot of extra information. Since I didn't want to print it, I emailed it to my friend to present it on her iPad. When it came time to present, the professor seemed confused by my submission and decided that all of us had to redo the assignment, this time limited to just 1 page. That gave me an idea. Using Adobe Acrobat, I exported my original document as a PDF, shrinking all 11 pages down to fit on a single sheet. I called this my prank file. Of course, I also made a legitimate submission that was 2 pages long. The professor was fine with that. I emailed both files to my friend and instructed her to show the prank file first. The plan was to surprise the professor and then quickly switch to my real submission. When we got to class, I eagerly waited as my friend opened the prank file and showed it to the professor. The entire class laughed when he saw the incredibly tiny text. He even commented on how impossible it was to read. Then my friend pulled up my real submission and I presented it properly. The professor appreciated the humor and congratulated me on completing the assignment. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. Also, if you want to support me further, check out the channel membership or Patreon. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.